Okay, so in this video recording, I'm going to be doing this Eames Eiffel Chair. So it is supported by wood and the metal cross brace. Okay, so you can find a lot of image references online if you Google for this name called Eames Eiffel Chair. There are two variations. So the variation that I'm doing is the one with the wood bracing, like this one. Then there is another one, right, that is just pure metal bracing. So you can use this method video, right, that I'm recording, right, to actually model both of these chairs. So the metal one that you can see here, the structure is more intricate, but we are going to be doing these two variations here, like what I've done in this completed version. Okay. So I'm going to start a brand new scene. And then I'm going to start by creating the wooden leg first. So I'm going to use the default cylinder and use a long cylinder with several subdivisions in the height. I'm going to give about 2 subdivisions like so. Because studying the legs, right, of the picture, you can see that it is slightly tapered. Right, slightly tapered, right, in the bottom section here, right. So I'm going to reduce the radius until I got just about the thickness that I want. Then after that, right, I'll go over to the vertex level, select the bottom vertex and scale this down slightly. Maybe for the top, I'll just scale it in slightly as well, right, so that I have the leg. So once I have the leg, right, I have to position them so that it is rotated in this fashion, like what you see in this picture over here, right. So you can see that there's a tilt angle, right, on this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do one leg nicely first, then I'm going to duplicate them using the mirror option. So I'm just going to tilt it gently by going to the front view. Right, and then just rotate this slightly like that. Okay, I'm just eyeballing this. I'm just looking at the picture and then see how much angle is rotated. Okay, I'm just going to rotate this using my eyeball. So this looks about right. Okay, next, I want to fix the bottom of the feet here. So if you go to perspective view, go to vertex, select the central vertex, hold down the control, right mouse click to faces. Then we are going to extrude. Shift right mouse click and extrude the face. And pull out one section. And then holding down the control and grabbing the blue cube, we're going to scale it inwards like that. Press G again to repeat the extrude. Pull out another section. So that we have this leg looking like this. Alright, but later we want this entire section, right, to be pointed downwards. So I'm going to look at the front view again. Go over to vertex mode. Grab all these vertices. I'm going to use our rotation tool, right, and rotate it in such a way that it's pointing downwards, like that. Okay, and then again, I'm eyeballing this. I'm going to use the move, but I'm going to use the world orientation. Move this down until the feet is touching the bottom. Okay, it still needs a little bit more rotation. So let me just rotate this until it's nicely laid down flat like that. I'm going to use edge mode, double click this edge, then shift right mouse click and do a bevel. Now I want to do multiple bevels at the same time. So double click to select this edge loop, shift double click, so that the bottom edge loops are all selected. Shift right mouse click, go and do a bevel. And we're going to give a closed fraction like that. I think this is good enough. So that if I press number 3, I should still have the subdivided look, okay, with the feet at the bottom like that. Now the top part here, I need to insert one more edge loop. So I go to level 1. You can go to select this edge loop here, then apply a bevel. just like that. Okay, so now we have one foot done. Let's go to the front view, and we're going to move it out a little bit, just to about this section here. Again, this is just eyeballing the image, and I'm going to see what is the separation distance between here and here. And you can see that the distance between, I would say that this is a center point. The distance between here and here is actually quite low, quite small. So let me undo that. Right, so I think this is about right. Maybe I just move it in closer just a little bit. Then now I'm going to use the rotation tool to distribute it. Because if I look to the top view here, if I were to duplicate 4 pieces like this, okay, later I will still have to rotate them 45 degrees. So, okay, let me just show you what I mean. If I apply a mirror, if you go to mesh, mirror, mesh and mirror, let me just reset this tool. So it's going to mirror on the x-axis in the center line here. Okay, you see this thick line over here? This is your center line or the origin axis. So I'm going to apply a x-axis. Okay, the default is minus. So if I mirror, right, I should expect to see the other side, but it is being cancelled out because, right, the direction is wrong. So I can click on the direction to positive. Now I should see another extra leg on the opposite side. So when I mirror, right, it should create an exact copy of this to the other side, and it will merge this together to form a single object. Okay, the next thing I want to do is to duplicate this by rotating it 90 degrees. Alright, so select this, press Q to go to select, press E to go to rotate. Now, if I try to rotate this now, you notice that it will rotate on its original center. So I'll have to apply something called center pivot. So go to modeling and apply a center pivot. Okay, but somehow when I apply a center pivot, right, you can see that the location is not exactly the correct place. So I'll have to manually switch the pivot point by pressing D, then holding down to X, and move it along the x-axis, right, until it snaps to the center like that. So right now, the axis is in the correct location. So go to the top view, press E to rotate. Then you notice the rotation is also out of whack. So I want to go to rotation, double click the rotation, and instead of object, I want to switch to world. So that it's aligned nicely to the world. So holding down the shift, we are going to clone and rotate so that we have a perfect copy right over here. So you can see the value on the channel box, right? It says minus 90, minus 90. So I'm going to just manually enter this value, minus 90, minus 90. So that both are now rotated perfectly at this angle. All right. So right now the feet looks a bit long. So how can I fix this? Well, let's see. We can try this one. I have to do it individually, unfortunately. So go to what do you call that? Edge mode. Okay, I think I want to bring the height of this down a little bit more. So I think let me just do this. Okay, this is non-standard way. I'm going to combine all these together, mesh combine, and then select the vertices on top. Okay, normally I would not do this because this will actually change the shape of the legs a little bit. So I'm going to move this down. You can see here we got some issues on these vertices already. So I'm going to move this down, and then move this down until I get a straight shape. Okay, right now I'm just eyeballing it quite a bit. Okay, now the legs looks about the correct shape. Okay. Now to do the bracing. Now to do the bracing, right, we couldn't construct the bracing, right, with the legs aligned like that. And since I already combined them together, let me see whether I can center the pivot. And yeah, the pivot seems to be centering just nice. Now I need to rotate everything 45 degrees. So to rotate 45 degrees, right, I just need to grab the outer edge and then change this to minus 45 in the channel box. Okay, I'm going to delete away the history. the edit history, and I can freeze the transformation. Okay, so my legs are pretty much done, so I can just call this chair underscore legs. Alright, now the bracing. So the bracing is a little bit trickier. The bracing, right, if you look carefully at the picture, consists of a rod and then an eyelet. Okay, what is an eyelet? Basically, right, it is a long piece of metal, and then at the end of it, right, there is a loop showing it's connected to a eyelet, E-Y-E-L-E-T. So this is for the screw, right, to go through, and then you can attach more than one of these bars around. So I'm just going to fashion again using a cylinder, right, to construct a rod with an eyelet on both ends. So I'll just start with a single cylinder first, and using the same number of default segments, I'm going to reduce the radius until it's really small, but not too small. Okay, I think this thickness should be about right. And then I'm just going to work on the top part here and form an eyelet at the end. Okay, so right now I'm thinking, so how should I create an eyelet that connects over here? So there are many ways that you can do this. Okay, I'm going to just create another, I'm going to create another cylinder, just duplicate. And I'm going to use this cylinder as the eyelet, just to keep things simple. Okay, and then I'm going to get rid of the faces in the center. You can drag and select all the faces in the center, top and bottom, and delete it away. Then go and select the inner faces to create the donut, or rather the pipe. Okay, everything is, you can see here, is black, right? So if you go to object mode, you can go to mesh display and reverse it. Then we have our little washer or eyelet. So I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. Although I created one video earlier on, I think the first video that I did, right, the eyelet doesn't really look very nice, so I'm recreating this one. Okay, so right now I want to join this eyelet, right, to this portion here. So I will bevel or extrude a small section out. So select the vertex here, holding down the control, right mouse click to faces, then extrude, Control E, extrude one small section, and then I'm going to just scale it inwards like that. And then, actually I shouldn't have done that. I will just not scale it until it becomes a rod like that. And then press Control E again to extrude, and then just have it connect here. And make this one smaller a bit. Oops, not this one. Press R to scale it smaller like that. Okay, I'll just keep it like this. I think this should be fine. Can make the eyelet a little bit bigger. And maybe a bit thinner. Okay, because these are going to be very small later on and you can't really see it. So this eyelet, right, you can select this element and this rod here and then combine them together. So go to mesh, combine. Alright. Now I'm going to duplicate so that the top and bottom, alright, also have the same thing. So I'm going to move this mesh until it is lined up to the ground level. So move it until it's at the ground level, because we're going to use the mirror tool again to help us combine these two together. So move it until, right, the bottom is lined up here. Then go to mesh, mirror. We're going to duplicate it along the y-axis and let it merge. So when we mirror, right, the top and bottom will be merged together. And then you can see that we have the top and bottom eyelet and the rod is done. Okay, we do not need this center edge loop. You can press Ctrl Delete to get rid of it. And then our bracing rod is done. Okay, so now we have to decide how do we want to brace it. So again, refer back to the picture again. Okay, the bracing rod, right, start from the top, and then it is lined up behind. Okay, and then if you look carefully, right, it is right at the center, right at the center, right, that is facing the opposite rod. So we just need to create one set first, and then we can use the mirror tool to help us to mirror to the other side. So now that we got this rod, we can go to the top view. Okay, and then we need to align it to one of the points here first. So I'm going to rotate this also 45 degrees, like that. 45 degrees. And we're going to move this eyelet, right, until it touches the base here. You can press number 4 to go to wireframe to see where it is. Then we go to perspective view. And make sure that it is, the eyelet, right, is touching the top here. Now, the best part right now is that you have to check and make sure that it is touching in the center, which I think, yeah, we did is correct. We just want to do this as accurately as possible. Now, we can now change the pivot point of this eyelet, right, or rather this rod here to the circle here. So press D, then grab and push this up until it's right in the center here. Press D again to get out. The reason is I want to rotate. Yeah, I want to rotate, right, so that it will extend all the way to the other side like that in a cross fashion. Okay, so this one needs a little bit of adjustment. So for this one, right, we can go to the front view first, or rather the right view in this case. Okay, let me check whether, yeah, this is the right view. And then I'm just going to, based on the view, and I'm going to rotate it so that it is pointing roughly to where I want it to connect. So obviously right now this is not long enough. So we can go over to vertex mode, grab the vertex at the end, and then pull it manually and extend it all the way to the end here. Go to the top view and see where is it going. Okay, so it's going to this side, and you can see that this part here, right, is not extending to the bottom here. So we have to move the group of vertices, right, until it is roughly touching the area there, right in the center there. So now we need to inspect where does this part end up in perspective view. So this one could be a little bit tricky. So we will need to push this out until we can see the eyelet. And also you can see that the eyelet, right, is also not in the correct position anymore. We need the eyelet, right, to be flushed against the surface. Okay, let's start with the original one first. So remember, these two are separate. The hoop and this part is separate. So I'm going to select this face. Then just use the rotate tool. We don't use the axis anymore. You can actually grab the other parts here, right, and keep on rotating until you get the rod to line up. And then this part here, we can select the vertices here. Okay, this part is a bit tricky because you will end up selecting some of the hoops vertices. I'm going to go to face mode and temporarily move it out of the way first. And these vertices here that I want to select, I'm going to move it inwards like that. Okay, now this part is lined up. Let's go and take a look at it from the top here. Okay, this is good. Okay, what about this one? Same thing. I'm going to select the hoop. Then I'm going to use the rotation tool. Okay, you can see I'm grabbing the corners, right, or the empty spaces, and then I'm just rotating it until it matches the orientation of the beam here. Basically, I'm rotating based on the view here. So this is a good chance that you can use it. So I'm going to put it until it's sliding here. Now I'm left with these vertices here. Okay, make sure you don't select these. Okay. holding control to deselect, then I will grab these and then I'll just touch it here. Okay, so now we got one rod done. So from this single rod alone, right, we can duplicate the rest of the rods already. All right, so let's start by looking here. Let's see. Okay, so this is the side view. So I'm going to use the mirror tool, right, to mirror it in the z-axis now. So go to Mesh, Mirror, z-axis, and uncheck this one, combine with our original. Just uncheck it first, and then mirror. And then right now you can see this thing called cut geometry is on. Turn it off so that you can see the two. So the other two, right, should match nicely to the other side, the mirrored version. But you can see that it's crossing over each other, but that is fine. If you want to avoid the cross, right, you can just move this out slightly, just a bit, and then to the left a bit, like so. Okay, but I think I just am temporarily going to leave it crossed first, because you can move this individually later on. Okay, so now I can select these two, right? Then I can apply a group to them, right? Actually, on hindsight, I think I will not assign a group to it yet. I will just continue to do my mirror. So select this rod, and I'm going to mirror it in the x-axis now. So mesh, mirror around the x-axis, and mirror. Okay, if it disappears, you just need to change the direction to positive. So this one is now mirrored. So I'm going to do the same thing for this one. Mesh, mirror. So this should be a positive, x-axis, and mirror. Okay. Now sometimes you lose your texture material or material assignment. You just need to reassign it to Lambert 1. Right mouse click, assign to Lambert 1. Okay, so now we can actually manually duplicate. Like for example, I can Shift D to duplicate this. So now I have an extra set. I can use rotate. So if you look to the top view, right, the rotation axis is also wrong. So I'm going to press D, holding down to X, just move the rotation axis to the center here. Press D again to get out. Then we can rotate the duplicates, right, 90 degrees. Okay, you can hold on to, let me undo that. Hold on to J so they can rotate and snap 90 degrees. So now our bracing is done. And it's all lined up nicely. Okay, you might need to adjust the screw rods again, or rather the heads. And then for some of it, right, like for example these, I'm going to click on the left ones and move it in slightly. And if you want to adjust the individual heads, right, until they all line up, you can also do that. Like for example, this one is not lined up. You can grab all these vertices, right, and then you can manually move them and line them up. Okay, go to vertex selection, grab all these vertices, and manually line it up. Okay, some of it, right, you have to manually push it in. So you can, those of you who want, you can actually model the screw, right, to actually screw them in, if you want to do to that extreme detail. But I'm not going to do that here. Okay, I'm just going to show you the method of lining up. Is literally going to the vertex level and then adjusting. Okay, so now my lining up is pretty much done. Okay, maybe the downside here is a bit off, but Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Now I'm just going to build the chair itself. So there are two variations. There is the simpler chair with no sides, like this. And if you want to be even more precise, right, you still have to build a metal bracket, right, which you are supposed to screw onto the plastic molding socket here. Okay, so but anyway, once this thing is on top, right, nobody can see those things, so I'm not going to model those. So remember this rule about 3D modeling. Don't model things that you can't see. So I'm going to save this scene first, in case anything happens. So this one is the Eame Eiffel Chair. Then how to model the seat. Okay, the seat is very simple. You can start off with a cube. I'm going to scale the cube up, bring the cube up and scale it up until it is sitting right on top here. Because we are going to deconstruct the cube and we're going to use just two faces. So go over the faces and grab these faces here. Alright, so that we only leave with the bottom and back face and delete it away. Alright, now if I press number 3, you can see that we have the basis of the chair. Right now, the inside is black, so I want to flip it. So go to object mode, go to mesh display, and then reverse this. So right now I'm in level 3. Okay, so if I want this part, right, to be rounded a little bit more, okay, I can select this edge and apply a bevel. Adjust the fraction. Okay, you can go over to the edge, right, and then push it back if you want. Okay, right now it doesn't look like the shape of the chair yet because we don't have enough subdivision. So I'm going to include one subdivision here, middle cut here, and then middle cut here. Go to vertex mode, grab these two vertices and move it down so that we have the rounded look like that. Then same here as well. Push it back. But it's still not round enough, so we need to extend a border around the edge here. So double click to select the border and we're going to extrude out an edge. So this will literally round out the edge a lot. Okay, if you pull out the edge, right, you can see that we now can fake something called a fake thickness. So with the edge selected, you can select the edge, double click by selecting the edge like that. If you go to the right view and you just pull it back, you can see the first beginnings of the molding. Then the next thing you need to do is just to move and push the vertices, right, to get the shape looking correct. So it's very simple. We have the faces here. This is the part where the back is supported. We can just push it in like that. Okay, and then over here we need another edge loop that runs across here. Then we can select a couple of edges here and then push it down. This one as well, so that it got much better support. Now the outer ring itself, I'm going to push it down slightly and push it back, and also use the scale, right, to scale it inwards like that. So going to object mode, I'll just push this up until it lines up with the base of the chair. Now if you want the front side to be wider, all you need to do is just select the vertices. Use scale and then scale it wider. Right now we are only working on a very thin layer of mesh, so it doesn't really look, it looks quite fake lah. It looks so thin already. Okay, right now I'm just using scale, right, to close up this area a bit. Now I can spend a while to really tweak this. Okay, let's say I'm happy with this. I'm going to apply a, okay, actually the chair, right, the actual chair itself tilts backwards a little bit more. like that. Okay. Okay, these two needs to go down a little bit more and scale inwards a bit. Same for these two here. Okay, so let's say I'm happy with this already. Then I'll apply an extrusion for all the faces. But remember, after you have done this, right, you have to take note of the both sides of the vertices when you're adjusting it. So I will do this step, usually the last. Okay, I'm just going to tweak it a little bit more. Okay, let's say I'm happy with this. Go to face selection mode, double click on it, then extrude. Then give it a slight thickness, not too thick, just a little bit. Okay, so now it has true thickness. And then the basic chair itself is done. I think this one could be a little bit bigger. Okay. So you can either group everything together, or you can combine them together. But be careful, if you combine them together, right, subdivision will be applied to these objects here. So what I'll do is I'll just group them together. So how do you group an object together? Okay, first I need to get rid of the history. So I'm going to delete away the history, freeze transformation, and let's check what are these. Okay, these are the rods. Okay, the rods, right, I need to get rid of their history as well. So I'm going to select all of them, delete away their history. Okay, then let's see, is there any more open up? Well, there are still two more here, so I'm going to delete away the history. I'm going to unparent them from these transform nodes. Okay, make sure you clear away all these transform nodes. Then now you can finally group all of these pieces together. Okay, to group, right, you press Ctrl G or go to Edit and Group. Right. So once you group it, right, if you want to select all of them at the same time, you must always come and select the group in your outliner. Okay. So it's a quick way, right, to select the group, and then you can also duplicate multiple groups. All right. Multiple versions of the chair. Okay, so that's how you create this particular Eames Eiffel chair. Now, what about the chair with the handle? Okay, so again, okay, I'm going to select the group and go and reset the position. Get rid of the empty groups here in outliner. Now, if you want to create a chair with the handle, right, again, you start off with a cube. But this time, we don't delete all the faces. We're going to delete away only these two faces. And this will be the basis of our chair with the armrest. Okay, if I press number 3, you can see that we have the basic shape. And if I go and change the display, I'm going to reverse this so the whites are pointing outside. So this one, I can scale it down like that. So right now it looks like a bucket. And for the backrest, you just select the edge. Holding down the shift, you can extrude. Then we can scale this down. Okay, using the same thing we did over here, I'm going to select the edge, then extrude out the edge. Okay, and then press W to move. You can move the edges back down like that. So basically, we have the armrest already. So you want to tweak this further, right? All you need to do is just insert edge loops in the middle like that. Okay, you can see that the chair with the armrest is pretty much almost done. Okay, you can select the vertices here, push it back to give it a much more rounded profile, and the central vertices here, push it down a little bit so that it's got a much nicer U shape. If you want the armrest to be more prominent, you can select the vertices here and then extend it outwards Same for these outer vertices, just extend it outwards by scaling it out. So the same thing, once you're happy with this, you can go to face mode, double click, and then extrude everything. Okay, give it a slight thickness so that you have a true thickness on this mesh. You can group this together, and now you have your different variation of the Eames chair. Okay, so that's how you model the chair. Okay, with that I will end the video.